1990. The dawn of a new decade. TV was shifting in big ways. The Fresh Prince moved into Bel-Air, Twin Peaks confused everyone, and The Simpsons were just getting started. But not every show was a hit. Some crashed and burned so fast, you barely know they existed. Today we're diving into 10 TV shows from 1990 that flopped hard. And while they included many of the biggest Hollywood stars like Jennifer Aniston back when Friends were acquaintances and Brad Pitt before he became people's sexiest man alive, some of these shows were truly bizarre. If you're a fan of 90s TV history or just love watching glorious train wrecks, hit that subscribe button now and tap that notification bell so you don't miss our weekly doses of nostalgia. Number 10, Cop Rock on ABC. Let's start with what might be the most legendary TV failure of all time, Cop Rock. Now, this show wasn't just a flop. It was a spectacular swing for the fences disaster that still gets talked about decades later. Created by Steven Bochco, the genius behind Hill Street Blues and LA Law, Cop Rock attempted to combine gritty police drama with, get this, Broadway-style musical numbers, and a 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not gonna sing, you don't want to hear that. So yes, in the middle of arresting perps and investigating murders, the cast would break into song and dance. Imagine a tough police interrogation suddenly interrupted by the suspect singing a soulful ballad about his innocence, or cops performing choreographed dance numbers in the squad room. It happened, and it was as weird as it sounds. ABC reportedly spent $1.8 million per episode, an unheard of amount for 1990, making Cop Rock one of the most expensive shows on television. After 11 episodes, even ABC's extraordinary patience ran out and they canceled what would become television's most infamous musical, Misfire. Today, Cop Rock enjoys cult status among bad TV enthusiasts and influenced later musical TV show successes like Glee. It was so spectacularly wrong that it circled back to being somewhat right. But if you thought singing police officers were a bizarre concept, just wait until you see what happened when NBC decided to take one of the most beloved teen movies of all time and turn it into a weekly sitcom. Number 9, Ferris Bueller, NBC. You loved the movie, so naturally NBC thought you'd love a weekly dose of Ferris Bueller. Spoiler alert, you didn't. Just 4 years after Matthew Broderick charmed audiences in the iconic film, NBC decided to cash in with a TV adaptation starring Charlie Schlatter as Ferris and, wait for it, Jennifer Aniston as his sister Jeannie. Yes, that Jennifer Aniston, before Friends made her a household name. The show committed the cardinal sin of pretending the movie never existed. Schlatter's Ferris even demolished a cardboard cutout of Broderick in the pilot, declaring, "Why are they making a TV show out of my life?" Good question, Ferris. Good question. NBC's scheduling didn't help matters. They placed Ferris Bueller on Monday nights at 8:30, right after The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, hoping Will Smith's new hit would provide a strong lead-in. Instead, viewers tuned in for Fresh Prince and promptly changed the channel, with many flipping to Fox's Parker Lewis Can't Lose, another Ferris-inspired teen comedy that actually found an audience and ran for 3 seasons. Despite the star power and name recognition, viewers found this Ferris decidedly less Bueller. NBC ordered 13 episodes but pulled the plug after just 12, with the final episode never seeing the light of day. And while Jennifer Aniston eventually escaped the Ferris Bueller disaster to become a megastar, she wasn't the only future A-lister trapped in a doomed 1990 series. Hold on to your seats as we reveal which Hollywood heartthrob got his start in a show so bad, he probably hopes you'll never see it. At number 8, Glory Days, Fox. Before he was a Hollywood megastar, Brad Pitt appeared in this Fox drama about a former high school hero returning to his hometown after college failure. Think Friday Night Lights, but with worse writing and a confused tone. The most interesting thing about Glory Days is that it starred Brad Pitt in one of his earliest roles. That's right, the future Tyler Durden, Achilles, and Mr. Smith was once on a failed Fox drama that most people don't even remember existed. The show was plagued by production issues from the start. Fox executives reportedly demanded constant script changes, believing the original concept was too depressing for their target demographic. But the real nail in the coffin, Fox scheduled it during the summer, starting in July of 1990, when viewership was already low, and pitted it against established hits like Jake and the Fat Man on CBS. A Thursday night death slot against popular programming is a classic network move that dooms shows before they even have a chance. The result was a muddled mess that couldn't decide if it was a serious drama about lost potential or a lighthearted romp about rekindling old friendships. After just 6 episodes, Fox pulled the plug, making Glory Days little more than a footnote in Brad Pitt's rise to stardom. If you're enjoying this deep dive into TV's biggest disasters, do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps our channel grow, and we've got plenty more 80s and 90s TV history content coming your way each and every week. Now, buckle up, because we're about to witness the most shocking transformation in TV history. Imagine taking the most wholesome family in television history and plunging them into a world of alcoholism, paralysis, and marital strife. That's exactly what CBS did when they decided this show needed to get serious. Number 7, The Bradys, CBS. Hey, you remember the Brady Bunch, the squeaky clean family from the 1970s that never faced any problems more serious than Marsha getting hit with a football. Well, CBS decided that what that franchise really needed was a gritty, dramatic reboot. The Bradys reimagined the wholesome family dealing with alcoholism, car accidents, infertility, and political campaigns. Bobby Brady became paralyzed in a racing accident. Marsha struggled with alcoholism. Peter's marriage was falling apart. This was not the Brady Bunch you remembered. All the original actors returned, now visibly older and desperately trying to handle dramatic material that was way outside their wheelhouse. Behind the scenes, several cast members reportedly voiced concerns about the dramatic tone, with Robert Reed, who played Mike Brady by the way, particularly vocal about the jarring shift from the show's original spirit. The result was unintentionally hilarious at best and deeply uncomfortable at worst. CBS canceled the show after just 6 episodes. Perhaps most fascinating though, this bizarre Brady experiment predated the modern trend of gritty reboots by nearly 2 decades. Now, a little known fact though, Yeardley Smith, who had just started voicing Lisa Simpson, appeared in an episode as a young reporter in an odd crossover between television's most dysfunctional yellow family and its most artificially perfect one. But the Bradys weren't the only ones bursting out of their comfort zone in 1990. Remember how we started this list with singing cops? Well, apparently NBC thought the problem wasn't the singing, it was the cops. What if instead we had rapping teenagers? Prepare for the High School Musical that made audiences want to drop out. Number 6, Hull High, NBC. If cop rock proved that musical police dramas don't work, Hull High confirmed that musical high school dramas weren't ready for primetime either, at least not until Glee came along 19 years later. Imagine Glee, but way before its time. NBC's Hull High followed the students and faculty of a typical American high school who, you guessed it, spontaneously burst into rap and song to express their feelings. The 1990s were really into inappropriate musical numbers. The show featured a Greek chorus of hip-hop performers who would rap about the plot developments, because nothing says authentic teenage experience like middle-aged TV executives trying to be hip with the kids, yo! NBC made a fatal scheduling error by placing Hull High on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. directly against CBS's 60 Minutes, one of the most consistent ratings performers in television history. One memorable number featured teachers rapping about the joys of algebra. Another had the football team performing an elaborate dance routine about winning the big game. It was as cringeworthy as it sounds. NBC canceled Hull High after just 9 episodes, with one executive reportedly saying, quote, "We were trying to capture the energy of fame for a new generation. Instead, we created something that made everyone deeply uncomfortable." From one misguided trend to another, 1990 was the year networks discovered the environment. As Earth Day turned 20, CBS decided to cash in with an action show so earnest, so expensive, and so embarrassing that it makes Captain Planet look like a documentary. Number 5, Earth Force, CBS. Nothing screams 1990 quite like an environmental action show, and Earth Force leaned all the way in. This CBS disaster starred Gil Gerard, Buck Rogers himself, leading an elite team of eco-warriors fighting environmental crimes. The concept was simple. Military veterans with different specialties form a team to battle eco-terrorism and corrupt polluters. Think Captain Planet meets the A-Team with a sprinkle of Mission Impossible, and I pity the fool for that crossover. The show was rushed into production specifically to capitalize on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day in 1990, which meant CBS executives saw dollar signs in the growing environmental movement and fast-tracked the show without properly developing the concept. CBS spared no expense on the pilot, with a reported budget of over $5 million, which was astronomical for 1990 television. The result? Special effects that somehow still looked cheap, dialogue that made Mother Nature herself cringe, and action sequences that were about as thrilling as watching actual recycling. In the ultimate scheduling blunder, CBS placed Earth Force on Saturday nights at 9 p.m., directly against NBC's rating powerhouse, The Golden Girls. After just 3 episodes, CBS pulled the plug, leaving Gil Gerard Buck Rogers himself to ponder how he went from galactic hero to eco-warrior to unemployed in just over a decade. But Earth Force wasn't the only show trying to ride a trend in 1990. The late 80s had given us Working Girl, a smash hit film about a secretary fighting corporate sexism. Hollywood executives, in their infinite wisdom, asked themselves, how can we take this timely feminist story and transform it into a generic sitcom? The answer involved a future Oscar winner who probably wishes this next show would disappear from her resume. Number 4, Working Girl, NBC. Before she was America's sweetheart, Sandra Bullock starred in this short-lived NBC sitcom based on the hit 1988 film that originally starred Melanie Griffith. Yes, that Sandra Bullock years before Speed, Miss Congeniality, and The Blind Side made her a household name. The premise followed Tess McGill, who was played by Sandra Bullock, a working-class secretary trying to climb the corporate ladder while dealing with office politics and her demanding boss. It sounds like a solid premise for a workplace comedy, right? Well, unfortunately, the execution was painfully generic. Behind the scenes, the show suffered from an identity crisis. Producers couldn't decide if they wanted to be faithful to the film's blend of romance and workplace drama, or lean into being a more traditional sitcom. The result was a watered-down version of both that satisfied no one. NBC pulled the plug after just 8 episodes, despite having filmed 12. Interestingly, this failed show might have been the best thing to happen to Bullock's career, because shortly after its cancellation, she focused on film roles, landing Demolition Man and then Speed, which catapulted her to stardom. Sometimes you need to fail on TV to succeed in Hollywood. Now, from the glass ceiling of corporate America to the blue-collar streets of Boston, the early 90s were obsessed with class struggle, and with Roseanne dominating the ratings, every network wanted their own working-class hero. CBS thought they'd found their answer in a loud, brash Boston comedian with an attitude problem and zero acting experience. What could possibly go wrong? Number 3, Lenny, CBS. For some reason, CBS decided that what America really needed was a sitcom built around Boston comedian Lenny Clarke's abrasive blue-collar persona. The result was Lenny, a family sitcom that tried to capture the gritty charm of Roseanne, but ended up feeling more like a pale imitation. The show featured Clarke as a blue-collar worker in Boston, trying to balance family life with his factory job. On paper, this should have worked. Working-class family sitcoms were huge in the early 90s. But Lenny lacked the sharp writing and authentic feel that made shows like Roseanne connect with audiences. CBS didn't do the show any favors by scheduling it on Mondays against MacGyver on ABC, which had a loyal following. Later, with their infinite wisdom, they moved it to Wednesday nights against NBC's hit Unsolved Mysteries, essentially guaranteeing it wouldn't find any sort of audience. Behind the scenes, Clarke reportedly clashed with network executives over the show's direction. He wanted it to be edgier and more reflective of his stand-up persona, while CBS wanted a safe family sitcom. After bouncing around different time slots and suffering from inconsistent writing, CBS finally canceled Lenny after 16 episodes. Clarke returned to stand-up and eventually found success in supporting roles, but his shot at sitcom stardom was over before it ever really began. But if you think throwing money at an untested comedian was a bad idea, wait until you see what happens when a network throws millions at an Oscar winner. Our next disaster features one of the biggest stars of the 90s, one of the highest salaries in TV history, and a concept so misguided it makes you wonder if anyone at CBS had actually seen the movie they were adapting. Number 2, Baghdad Cafe, CBS. Based on the 1987 indie film of the same name, this CBS sitcom starred Whoopi Goldberg fresh off her Oscar nom for Ghost, which she would go on to win, but I digress. The network clearly thought Whoopi's star power could carry this quirky comedy about the eccentric staff and customers of a remote desert truck stop. CBS spent big money on this one, reportedly paying Goldberg $200,000 per episode in 1990 dollars, which would be equivalent to over $400,000 today. That made Whoopi one of the highest paid actors on television at the time, but even her considerable talent and star power couldn't save this roadside wreck. The show was rushed into production because CBS was desperate to capitalize on Goldberg's post-Ghost popularity. This haste showed in the writing, which lacked the subtle charm of the original film and instead went for broad, obvious humor that didn't match the source material. The show premiered in March of 1990 with decent ratings, mostly from curious Whoopi fans, but quickly crashed harder than a semi with no brakes. CBS desperately shuffled it around the schedule 5 times in just 15 episodes before putting it out of its misery. A clear sign of a network that had invested too much to give up easily but had no idea how to fix what was already broken. And now for the grand finale of our failed TV tour. The ultimate example of a show that had everything on paper and nothing on screen. 2 beloved actors, a heartwarming premise, and a network desperate for a hit combined to create the perfect storm of mediocrity. Ladies and gentlemen, our last spot goes to a show so forgettable, so confused, and so poorly conceived that it perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with network TV in 1990. Number 1, American Dreamer, NBC. American Dreamer starred Robert Urich as Tom Nash, a foreign correspondent who quits his high-pressure job after his wife dies to become a human interest columnist and raise his children in a small Wisconsin town. Carol Kane co-starred as his eccentric neighbor and photographer. On paper, it had all the elements of a hit. A likable star in Urich, fresh off Spencer for Hire, the beloved character actress in Kane, and a heartwarming premise about starting over. So what went wrong? Well, just about everything. The show suffered from a severe identity crisis. It couldn't decide if it was a heartwarming family drama, a fish-out-of-water comedy, or a workplace sitcom. Episodes veered wildly in tone, with some focusing on serious parenting challenges and others on zany small-town antics. NBC's scheduling decisions were the final nail in the coffin. American Dreamer was placed on Saturday nights at 8 p.m., a time when much of its target demographic, families and adults 18 to 49, were out of the house. The result was a tonally confused mess that failed to develop a consistent voice. After just 7 episodes, NBC pulled the plug on American Dreamer, making it one of the quickest cancellations of the 1990 season. The show serves as a fascinating example of a familiar TV lesson. Star power and good intentions can't save a show without a clear creative vision. And there you have it. 10 shows from 1990 that tried and failed spectacularly. From singing cops to rapping teenagers to the Brady family facing real problems, these shows represent some of the biggest creative misfires in television history. But hey, failure is often more interesting than success anyway, right? These shows might have bombed, but they bombed in fascinating ways that still have us talking about them decades later. Which of these shows do you remember? Did you watch any of them during their brief time on air? Share your memories in the comments section below, and are there any other forgotten shows from 1990 you'd love us to cover in a future video? Let us know. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and tell us which year you want us to explore next. Until then, this is Remember When, reminding you that in TV, as in life, failure is just success that hasn't found the right audience yet.